Hello there, welcome back to Max's Cards and Dice Dugout. This is episode 188, and this time, once again, we are in Bloomington, Minnesota at Metropolitan Stadium. No, not for the 1968 Vikings as in the last episode, but rather the 1965 Twins, who are the current Kings of the Hill. This is game number 68 in the Strat-O-Matic Baseball Oldtimer Kings King of the Hill tournament, which has the aforementioned Twins taking on the Cincinnati Reds. Before we get to the starting lineup, let's take a look at the Hill and see how we got to where we are. So the Twins got to 500 by winning 2 in a row, defeating both the 53 Dodgers and the 62 Giants. The 61 Reds would like to end that streak and get their 9th win and put them 1 win away from reaching the Goodell Cup Finals to take on the well-rested and ready 1954 Indians. And we got the 1950 Phillies on deck with the 1961 Tigers in the hole. All right, so let's get to the starting lineups for this one. First, for the challengers in this game, the 1961 Cincinnati Reds. Leading things off, second baseman Don Blasingame. Batting second at shortstop, Eddie Casco. Batting third, center fielder Vada Pinson. Batting fourth in right field, that's Frank Robinson. Batting fifth, left fielder Wally Post. Batting sixth, third baseman Gene Freese. Batting seventh, first baseman Gordy Coleman. Batting eighth, catcher John Edwards. And on the mound and batting ninth is Jim O'Toole. In 1961, he was 19-9 with a 3.09 ERA, 253 innings pitched. He's a number 2 hitting pitcher, so he gets that card in the lineup for him. Now for the current Kings, the 1965 Minnesota Twins leading things off. Shortstop Zoilo Versalis. Batting second, center field, Jimmy Hall. Batting third, right fielder Tony Oliva. Batting fourth, Harmon Killebrew. He's at first base. He's moved over there for the injured Don Mincher. Batting fifth, Bob Allison in left field. Batting sixth, catcher Earl Batty. Batting seventh, Rich Rollins. He's at third base, and he's in the lineup because of the injury to Don Mincher. Batting eighth, Jerry Kindle. He's at second. And on the hill and batting ninth is Jim Kaat. In 1965, he was 18-11 with a 2.83 ERA, 264 innings pitched. He is a number 4 hitting pitcher. That's the best hitting card we have in this old-timer set. So he gets that inserted into the lineup for him. And it looks like we're ready. Blasingame's in the box. Kaat's ready. And here we go. And right off the bat, the Reds are going to get on base because Blasingame hits one into left field. It's off the wall. Bob Allison is trying to track it down. Blasingame around second and will slide into third with a leadoff triple. Not the start the Twins were looking for. So there's a man on third with nobody out. And Eddie Casco. That's a fly ball to center field. That sends Hall back to the track where he makes the catch for the first out. Blasingame tags up, and the Reds are on the board 1-0 on the sac fly. And Jim Kaat gets a fatigue point. So the Reds lead 1-0. And there's one out, and Vada Pinson. That's a 1-out single for Pinson. Second hit for the Reds this inning. He hits that one into center field. Makes the turn, but he's going to hold there. And that brings up Frank Robinson. Pitch from Kaat. It's another base hit. Into left center. Pinson got a good jump, so he rounds second, heads into third. He's being held there. We got runners on the corners with 1 out for Wally Post. The Reds lead 1-0. And Kaat's in some trouble early. Here's the pitch. Bam! That's a strikeout. Big second out for Jim Kaat. Gets Post looking for out number 2. That brings up third baseman Gene Freese. Kaat would like to get out of this, only giving up that 1 run. Here's the pitch. It's a ground ball to third base, and it's going to be an X check for Rich Rollins. He's a 4. We roll a 20. Probably going to roll again. I'm pretty sure of that. No, I am wrong. That one is off Rollins' glove and into left field. E5. Pinson comes in to score. It's 2-0. Frank Robinson heads to third, and Freeze ends up on second with a 2-base error. First error of the game. And it's 2-0 now, so Jim Kaat gets another fatigue point. Could have been out of the inning if Rollins would have fielded that cleanly. But here we are, runners on second and third. 2 outs, Reds lead 2-0. Pitch. And that's a strikeout to end the inning. Gets Coleman swinging for the 3rd out. Second strikeout for Kaat. But the Reds do get 2 runs on 3 hits, 2 men left. Half inning in the books. It's the Reds 2 and the Twins coming up to bat. Kaat gets fatigue point number 3. All right. Here we are, bottom of the first. Reds leading 2-0. And leading things off for Minnesota, Zoilo Versalles. Here's the pitch from Jim O'Toole. And Versalles lifts this one into center field. And that's sending Vada Pinson back to the track, to the wall. It's way up, out of here, gone. A leadoff home run for Zoilo Versalles, and it's now 2-1 in favor of the Reds. And Jimmy O'Toole picks up a fatigue point. So the Twins answer right away. Cut the lead in half. It's 2-1. And here's Jimmy Hall. It's a ground ball to first base. It's going to be an X check for Gordy Coleman. He's a 4. We roll a 14. That's off his glove, rolls into right field, and Hall reaches on the E3. So both teams have committed an error here in the first inning. There's a man on first, nobody out. Twins trail 2-1. And Tony Oliva. Pitch from O'Toole. And that's a strikeout for the first out. That's going to bring up Harmon Killebrew. He's at first base today for the Twins due to the injury to Don Mincher. Man on first, 1 out. Pitch from O'Toole. And Killebrew gets a hold of this one. It's into left field, and it's sending Wally Post back to the track, to the wall. It's way up, out of here, gone. Another home run for the Twins here in the first inning, and they take a 3-2 lead. Ball is flying out of Metropolitan Stadium today. That's a 2 RBI shot. And 2 more fatigue points for O'Toole. And it's 3-2 in favor of the Twins. That brings up left fielder Bob Allison. Pitch from O'Toole. It's a 1-out single. Allison makes the turn, but he holds it first. Brings up catcher Earl Batty. Pitch from O'Toole. And that's a strikeout for the second out. And that's the second strikeout for O'Toole. Now there's 2 away. And third baseman Rich Rollins. Man on first, that's Bob Allison. Here's the pitch from O'Toole. And that one's right up the middle. Pinson fields it. Allison's going to hold it second. It's a base hit for Rich Rollins. And it's runners on first and second with 2 outs. And Jerry Kindle comes to the plate. Twins lead 3-2 here in the bottom of the first. Here's the pitch. And that's a strikeout. So O'Toole gets all 3 outs by strikeout. But he gives up a 2-run home run to Harmon Killebrew. The Twins score 3 runs in total here in the bottom of the first on 4 hits, 2 men left. And after 1 inning, it's the Twins 3 and the Reds 2. And O'Toole picks up fatigue point number 4. Jim Kaat's at 3 fatigue points after giving up 2 runs in the top of the first, and it's going to be John Edwards leading things off for the Reds. Here's the pitch from Kaat. That's a leadoff single. Hits aplenty so far in this one. So Edwards on first, nobody out, and that brings up Jim O'Toole. And O'Toole squares the bunt. And that one lands right in front of the plate. Batty fires to Versales, covering second. They get Edwards on the force. So the sacrifice doesn't work. And O'Toole reaches on a fielder's choice. So he's on first with 1 out. We're back to the top of the order, and Don Blasingame. Blasingame tripled his first time up and scored a run. Pitch from Kaat. That's a ground ball to third. And that's fielded by Rollins over to Killebrew for the 2nd out. Hold on a second. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. That is not true. They get O'Toole in the force for the 2nd out, and Blasingame reaches on a fielder's choice. So he's on first with 2 away. And it's Eddie Casco. Casco's 0 for 1. Pitch from Kaat. And Casco lifts this one. It's going to stay in the infield. And Kindle's under that. At second base, makes the catch for out number 3. So for the Reds in the top of the second, no runs, 1 hit, 1 man left. After 1.5, it's the Twins 3 and the Reds 2. Kaat gets fatigue point number 4. All right, Jim O'Toole's out here, and Jim Kaat's coming to the plate. Good hitting pitcher. And here's the delivery from O'Toole. It's a ground ball back to O'Toole, and it's an X check. He's a 2. We roll a 3. And he makes a nice play. Tosses over to Gordy Coleman for the 1-3 put out. And there's 1 down. So back to the top of the order, Zoilo Versales, who homered his first time up. Twins lead 3-2. 1 out, nobody on. Pitch. And Versales is now halfway to the cycle because he hits one into left center. He rounds first and slides into second with a 1-out double. So he's at second with 1 out, and Jimmy Hall, who reached on an error his first time up. Here's the pitch. Low and inside. And that's a walk. So now there's runners on first and second with 1 out. And Tony Oliva. Pitch from O'Toole. And that's a fly ball to center field. Veda Pinson's under that, makes the catch. Not deep enough for the runners to tag, and there are 2 away. And Harmon Killebrew comes to bat. Killebrew homered his last time up, and that gave the Twins the 3-2 lead. Pitch from O'Toole. And he wanted no parts of Killebrew this time. That was a intentional walk. And that loads the bases. For Bob Allison. Allison, it's 1-for-1. Pitch from O'Toole. And O'Toole walks in a run. Low and outside. Everybody moves up 90. And Versailles touches the plate. And it's now 4-2 in favor of the Twins. And O'Toole gets his 5th fatigue point. My. Should have pitched the Killer Brew. All right, so bases loaded, 2 outs. Earl Batty, pitch. This is trouble. Hits it into the left center gap. And that is a 2-out double for Batty. Hall scores. Killer Brew scores. Let's check Allison's running. He's a 1-15. That makes him a 1-17 with 2 outs. He's being waved home, and he is safe. 3 more runs for the Twins. Batty holds at second. And it's now 7-2. O'Toole picks up fatigue points 6, 7, and 8. And there is some activity in the Reds bullpen, and it's Ken Johnson warming up. All right, runner on second, 2 outs. Twins lead 7-2. Here's the pitch to Rich Rollins. And he hits a ground ball to shortstop Eddie Casco. Over to Gordy Coleman for the putout. The Twins bring 8 batters to the plate. And they score 4 runs on 2 hits. 1 man left on. And after 2 complete, it's the Twins 7 and the Reds 2. Jim O'Toole picks up another fatigue point. That puts him at 9. So now Jim Kaat has a 5-run cushion as he comes out here for the top of the 3rd. And it's Veda Pinson leading things off for the Reds. Pitch from Kaat. That's a fly ball to center field. Jimmy Hall's under that, makes the catch, and there is 1 away. So 1 out, nobody on for Frank Robinson. Pitch from Kaat. And Robinson hits this one into the left center gap. And he's making his turn for second, but he trips up and heads back to first. So it's a 1-out single. So he's down there at first base, and Wally Post with 1 out. And the Reds trailing 7-2. Here's the pitch. And that's a strikeout for the 2nd out. Strikeout number 3 for Kaat. There are 2 away. So 2 outs, man on first, and Gene Freeze. Pitch from Kaat. And this one's off the wall in left center. Robinson heads around second. He's being held up at third. Freeze cruises into second base with a stand-up 2-out double. And now it's runners on second and third with 2 away. And first baseman Gordy Coleman. Pitch from Kaat. And Coleman lines this one, but right at third baseman Rich Rollins, who makes a nice play to end the inning. So for the Reds in the top of the 3rd, no runs on 2 hits, 2 men left. And after 2.5, it's the Twins 7 and the Reds 2. Kaat picks up fatigue point number 5. Excuse me. Jim O'Toole, who's at 9, is out here to start things off. In the bottom of the 3rd, and it's Jerry Kindle leading things off. Ken Johnson's ready if needed. It's low and outside. That's a walk. Lead off walk to Jerry Kindle. And this next batter will probably be the last one for O'Toole. And it's Jim Kaat. Here's the pitch. It's a ground ball to second base. It's going to be an X check for Don Blasingame. He's a 3. We roll a 20. And fielding chart tells us we need to roll again. This time it's a 10. And it's an error by Don Blasingame. Kindle moves up to second. Kaat reaches on the E4. So now it's runners on first and second with nobody out, and that's it for Jim O'Toole. And the new pitcher for the Reds is Ken Johnson. Okay, in 1961, Ken Johnson was 6-2 with a 3.25 ERA, 83 innings pitched. And the first batter he's going to face is Zoilo Versalles at the top of the order. Versalles, who is 2 for 2 with a homer and a double so far. And let's see what Johnson can do here. Here's the pitch. And he gets Versalles swinging for the first out. So first and second with 1 out, Jimmy Hall. Hall has 2 runs scored. He reached on an error and walked his first 2 times up. Here's the pitch. Then he hits a fly ball to right field. Frank Robinson's under that, makes the catch. And there are 2 away. Runners on first and second, 2 outs. And Tony Oliva. Pitch from Johnson. Another fly ball to center field. Veda Pinson's under that one. Makes the catch for out number 3. So Ken Johnson comes in, faces 3 batters, retires all 3. No runs, no hits, 2 men left for the Twins, and after 3 innings, it's the Twins 7 and the Reds 2. And Johnson gets his first fatigue point. So Kaat is going to face Edwards and Johnson, the pitcher, and Don Blasingame. Here's the pitch to Edwards. It's a ground ball to short. It's going to be an X check for Versalles. He's a 2. We roll a 10. And that one's off Versalles' glove, and it rolls into foul territory behind third base. Edwards rounds first and heads to second on the 2-base error. E6. And both teams have committed 2 errors now in this one. So that brings up Ken Johnson. He's a number 3 hitting pitcher, so we got to switch his card out. He is going to bat here. Looks down to third base for his sign. Edwards is at second, but the Reds trail by 5. And here's the pitch from Kaat. It's a fly ball to center field. Jimmy Hall's under that, makes the catch. Edwards holds it at second, and there's 1 out. Back to the top of the order for the Reds and Don Blasingame. Pitch from Kaat. And that is a line drive, but right at second baseman Jerry Kindle for the second out. So 2 outs, man on second, Eddie Casco. Red shortstop. Casco is 0 for 2. Here's the pitch. No longer is he 0 for 2 because he laces that one into left center. It's in the gap. Edwards comes around third. He's going to score. And Casco slides into second with a 2-out RBI double. And it's now 7-3. Kaat picks up fatigue point number 6. So 2 outs, man on second for Veda Pinson. Pinson is 1 for 2 with a run scored. Pitch from Kaat. And he hits this one into right center. Casco with 2 outs got a good jump, comes around the score for the 4th run for the Reds. And Pinson slides into second. Back-to-back RBI doubles with 2 outs. And it's now 7-4. And Kaat picks up fatigue point number 7. And Frank Robinson comes to the plate. And there is some activity in the Twins bullpen. And it's it's Dave Boswell warming up. All right, runner on second, 2 outs. Twins lead 7-4. And Kaat to Robinson. And Robinson lifts this one into left center. And going back to the track is Bob Allison and Jimmy Hall. To the track, to the wall. It's out of here, gone. Another home run in this game. And it is now 7-4. 2-run blast by Robinson. Or 7-6. And just like that, Jim Kaat's up to 9 fatigue points, and the Reds are only down by 1. My. All right, bases empty because Robinson cleared them. 2 outs. Reds trail by 1, 7-6. And here's the pitch to Wally Post. And it's a fly ball to right field. This one sends Tony Oliva back to the track, but he's got some room there, makes the catch. And the inning is finally over. But not before the Reds pick up 4 runs on 3 hits. Nobody left on. And after 3.5, it's the Twins 7 and the Reds 6. And Jim Kaat gets another fatigue point, and that puts him at 10. Ken Johnson is going to face Harm Killebrew, first batter here in the bottom of the 4th. Here's the pitch. And Killebrew lifts this one to deep center field. Veda Pinson back to the track, to the wall. It's off the wall. Killebrew cruises into second with a leadoff double. The ball is lively here at Metropolitan Stadium in this one. All right, man on second, nobody out. Bob Allison. Here's the pitch. This one's going to stay in the infield. And Don Blasingame's under that. Makes the catch. 1 away. And Earl Batty comes to the plate. Batty's 1 for 2. Pitch from Johnson. And that's a strikeout. Strikeout number 2 for Ken. And there are 2 away. It's going to bring up third baseman Rich Rollins. Pitch from Johnson. It's a ground ball to short. Eddie Casco over to Gordy Coleman with the 3rd out. No runs on 1 hit, 1 man left, and after 4 complete, it's the Twins 7 and the Reds 6. Ken Johnson gets his second fatigue point. Kaat, who's at 10, with Dave Boswell ready in the bullpen, is out here for the top of the 5th, clinging to a 1-run lead. And it's Gene Freese leading things off for the Reds. Here's the pitch. And this is trouble to start things off. Well, it's a single. Could have been worse. So leadoff single for Freese. Tying run is on base. And Gordy Coleman comes to the plate. Coleman's 0 for 2. Pitch from Kaat. This one stays in the infield. And Harm Killebrew over at first base squeezes the glove around that one. And there's 1 out. Guess it would have been an infield fly roll. All right. That brings up Edwards. Man on first, 1 out. Pitch. Almost hits him. That's a 1-out walk. So Freese moves down to second. Runners on first and second with 1 out. And Ken Johnson, he's going to bat again. Pitch from Kaat. And that's a strikeout for out number 2. That's strikeout number 4 for Kaat. So runners on first and second, 2 outs, and back to the top of the order in Don Blasingame. Blasingame is 1 for 3 with the run scored. Here's the pitch. And this one's going to stay in the infield. Zoilo Versalis waves everyone off, makes the catch to end the inning. So for the Reds, no runs on 1 hit, 2 men left. And after 4.5, it's the Twins 7 and the Reds 6. And Kaat picks up fatigue point number 11, so his day is probably done. All right, Ken Johnson, who's at 2 fatigue points. They face Jerry Kindle and then the pitcher's spot. And then back to the top of the order. First up, Kindle. And that is a line drive right at first baseman Gordy Coleman. And he robs Kindle of a base hit. There's 1 away. All right, as mentioned, Jim Kaat is fatigued. Dave Boswell is going to be the pitcher for the Twins in the top of the 6th. So pinch hitting here will be Sandy Valdispino. One out, nobody on. Pitch from Ken Johnson. And Valdispino lifts this one in foul territory. John Edwards off with the mask over near the Twins dugout, makes the catch for the 2nd out. So 2 outs. Nobody on. Back to the top of the order with Zoilo Versalis. Bottom of the 5th, 2 outs. Twins lead 7-6. Here's the pitch. It's a ground ball to second base. It's going to be an X check for Don Blasingame. He's a 3. And we roll an 11. And Blasingame makes a nice play over to Gordy Coleman, 6-3 put out. And the Twins go 1, 2, 3. No runs, no hits, no 1 left on. 5 innings complete. And the Twins are holding on to that 1-run lead, 7-6. Ken Johnson gets his 3rd fatigue point. As mentioned, the day is over for Jim Kaat. And the new pitcher for the Twins is Dave Boswell. In 1965, Boswell was 6-5 with a 3.40 ERA. 106 innings pitched. Eddie Casco is going to be the first batter that he faces here The top of the 6th, and here's the pitch. It's a ground ball to short. It's going to be an X check for Versalis. He's a 2, rolling 18. Nice play by Versalis over to Harm Killebrew for the first out. 1 out, nobody on here in the top of the 6th, and Veda Pinson comes to the plate. And Pinson is 2 for 3. Pitch from Boswell. Make that 3 for 4 because he hits one in the left field. He makes the turn, but it's going to hold it first. So the tying run is on base with 1 out. And Frank Robinson, who got the Reds back in this game with that 2-run blast his last time up in the 4th inning. Pitch from Boswell. Oh, and Robinson just misses this one. It's off the wall in center field. Pinson holds up at 3rd because he wasn't sure if Hall was going to catch that one. And now it's 2nd and 3rd with 1 out for the Reds, and Wally Post is coming to the plate. And the Twins are bringing the infield in. Pitch from Boswell. And it's a fly ball to left field, but it's shallow. And Bob Allison makes the catch. The runners can't tag up. Big 2nd out for Dave Boswell. There's runners on 2nd and 3rd with 2 away. Infield's going to be back at normal depth for the Twins, and Gene Freese comes to the plate. Here's the pitch from Boswell. And it's a strikeout. Gets him looking. And Freese is not happy with that call. But he heads back to the dugout. That is the first strikeout for Dave Boswell. No runs for the Reds on 2 hits, 2 men left. They threatened but cannot bring one across. And after 5.5, it's still the Twins 7 and the Reds 6. And Boswell gets his first fatigue point. And Ken Johnson, here in the bottom of 6th, going to face Jimmy Hall first. Pitch from Johnson. It's a catcher's card X, and John Edwards is a 2. We roll an 18. And we got to roll again. And we roll a 17. And we got to roll again. We roll an 18, and guess what? We roll again. And this time we get a 12. So Jimmy Hall lifts this one up. Edwards is off with the mask. And just behind home plate makes the catch for the first out. So after all that, Jimmy Hall fouls out. All right. 1 out, nobody on for Tony Oliva. Oliva's 0 for 3. Here's the pitch. Make that 0 for 4 because he hits a ground ball to Don Blasingame over to Gordy Coleman. 4-3 put out for the 2nd out here in the bottom of the 6th. Brings up Harm Killebrew. Killebrew is 2 for 3 with a home run and 2 runs scored, 2 RBIs. Pitch from Johnson. And look out, because Killebrew lifts this one into left field, and it sends Wally Post back to the track, and it's off the wall. And Killebrew slides into second with a 2-out double. He is 3 for 4 with a homer and 2 doubles in this one. 2 runs scored and a couple of RBIs. All right, so he's there at second with 2 outs, and Bob Allison looking to drive Killebrew home and give the Twins some insurance here. Here's the pitch from Johnson. And he hits a fly ball to center field, but this one's going to stay in the park. Veda Pinson near the track has plenty of room, makes the catch for out number 3. So for the Twins, no runs on 1 hit, 1 man left, and 6 complete. It's the Twins 7 and the Reds 6. Ken Johnson, another fatigue point, puts him at 4. Dave Boswell is only at 1, having just come in last inning. And he's going to face Gordy Coleman. John Edwards and the pitcher spot. Pitch from Boswell. That's a leadoff single for Gordy Coleman. Tying run on base once again for the Reds. It brings up John Edwards. Man on first, nobody out. Pitch from Boswell. It's a ground ball to third, and it's going to be an X check for Rich Rollins. He's a 4, and we roll an 11. Oh, and that is off Rollins' glove and rolls into left field. Coleman around second, held up at third. Edwards slides into second base on a 2-base error by third baseman Rich Rollins. I believe that's his second error of the game, third one for the Twins. And it's now second and third with nobody out. And Ken Johnson's pitcher spot coming up, but he is not going to bat. If we look down to the Reds bullpen, Jim Brosnan is warming up. And it looks like Johnson's being called back to the dugout. He is not going to bat. And it's going to be left fielder Jerry Lynch pinch hitting for Johnson. Runners on second and third, nobody out. Go ahead run on second. Tying run on third. Here's the pitch to Lynch. The infield, I did not mention it, but the infield was in. And that's going to be trouble here for the Twins. Hold on a second. Because this is a 2-11. That is a ground ball to second, A++. That's going to score 2 runs. Because that one gets by Jerry Kendall. And it's a base hit for Lynch. But the runners on second and third, that's Coleman and Edwards, both score. And now it's 8-7 in favor of the Reds. And Boswell picks up 2 fatigue points. And there's still nobody out. And we're back to the top of the order in Don Blasingame. Infield is back to normal depth. All right, nobody out, man on first. The Reds lead 8-7. Here's the pitch. Low and outside, that's a walk. Have the wheels fallen off for Dave Boswell. Because now it's first and second. There's still nobody out. And now the Reds lead 8-7. And it's Eddie Casco. Here's the pitch. It's a ground ball to third base. And the only play is the force at second. Or excuse me, I'm sorry. The only play for Rollins is to go to first. So that's going to allow these 2 runners to move up 90 feet. So now there's runners on second and third with 1 out. Because Casco hits into the 5-3. And that's the first out here in the top of the 7th. So runners on second and third with 1 out, and the infield's back in for Veda Pinson. Here's the pitch. It's a fly ball to center field. And it's near the track. Jimmy Hall makes the catch. And Lynch tags up. He scores. Blasingame holds at second. Another fatigue point for Boswell. He's at 6 now. He's just about fatigued. And it's now 7-9. 9-7 in favor of the Reds, excuse me. But there are 2 outs and a runner on second. And that brings up Frank Robinson, who has been on a tear in this one. Robinson is 4 for 4. He is a triple shy of the cycle. Here's the pitch from Boswell. And that is another base hit and another RBI for Robinson. He hits this one in the center field. Blasingame comes around to score. And this one is starting to pull away from the Twins. And it's now 10-7 in favor of Cincinnati. Boswell picks up fatigue point number 7. And there's some warming up there. It's John Klippenstein. Or Steen. I'm not sure how you pronounce that, but he's warming up for the Twins. So there's a runner on first with 2 outs. As Robinson strikes again in this one. And Wally Post. And that's a strikeout for Boswell to end the inning finally. But the Reds get 4 runs on 3 hits, 1 man left, and as we stretch them, it's now the Reds 10 and the Twins 7. I'm going to take a little sip of my drink. And Dave Boswell gets fatigue point number 8. He's finished. Ken Johnson, who is at 4, it's got a little bit of room. And it's going to be Earl Batty leading things off for the Twins here in the bottom of the 7th, who all of a sudden find themselves trailing 10-7. Here's the pitch. And that's a strikeout for Johnson to start things off here in the bottom of the 7th. That is his first strikeout, I believe. There's one away and brings up third baseman Rich Rollins. Pitch from Johnson. It's a ground ball to short. Blasingame to Coleman. 6-3, and there are 2 away. Next up, Jerry Kindle. Pitch from Johnson. And that's a strikeout to end the inning. Second one for Johnson. Twins go 1-2-3, no runs, no hits, no one left on. And after 7, it's the Reds 10 and the Twins 7. And Ken Johnson picks up another fatigue point. That puts him at 5. He's good for 7 as a reliever. All right, Dave Boswell. His day is done because he has reached his fatigue. And it's John Klippenstein who's going to take his place. In 65, he was 9-3 with a 2.25 ERA and 76 innings pitched. And let's see. It's going to actually be a double switch. Klippenstein is going to bat in the 8th spot. And Kindle's coming out of the game. I think. Do I have an infielder? Yes. Frank Kwilicki is going to come in, play second base, and bat ninth. And as a second baseman, he's a 2. Klippenstein's a 1 and a 2. And Kwilicki's a second baseman with a 2. Let me insert him into the lineup. So he'll be batting ninth and leading things off in the bottom of the 8th. And Jerry Kindle is out of the game. Okay. Just wanted to get that straight. And we go to the top of the 8th with the Reds leading 10-7. And leading things off will be Gene Freese. Pitch from Klippenstein. It's a ground ball to short. It's going to be an X check for Versailles. He's a 2. We roll a 20. And he makes a nice play there. That is Versailles. And they get Gene Freese by a half step on the 6-3 put out for the first out here in the top of the 8th. That brings up Jerry Coleman. Or excuse me, not Jerry Coleman, Gordy Coleman. Pitch from Klippenstein. And that's a 1-out single. Line that one by third baseman Rich Rollins. And Coleman makes the turn, but he's going to stay put. The first base brings up John Edwards. Reds trying to add to their lead. Pitch from Klippenstein. It's low and outside. 1-out walk. Coleman moves up to second. First and second with 1 out. And a pitcher's spot. Now let's take a look at Ken Johnson. He's been kind of cruising, and he's at 4. He's got a bit of room. He's going to bat here. He is going to bat here. Will I regret this decision, or will the Reds regret my decision, I guess is what I should say. He squares the bunt, and it's a successful sacrifice bunt. It rolls towards Klippenstein at first, or at the pitcher's mound. He only has 1 play, and that's the 1-3 sack. And the runners move 90 feet, so we got runners on second and third with 1 out. So successful sack bunt by Ken Johnson moves the runners up 90. There's 2 outs now. I said there was 1, but there's 2. So there's runners on second and third with 2 outs. Top of the order, Don Blasingame. Here's the pitch. It's a fly ball to left field. And there's room out there for Bob Allison. He makes the catch for the 3rd out. So no runs on 1 hit for the Reds. 2 men left. And after 7.5, the Reds lead 10-7. Klippenstein gets his first fatigue point. All right. Ken Johnson out here for the bottom of the 8th. He's got a bit of room. Leadoff man is going to be Frank Kwilicki. He came in on that double switch. He's playing second base. And there's the pitch. It's a ground ball to third. Gene Freese over to Gordy Coleman. And that's the first out here in the bottom of the 8th. So 1 out. I have the pitcher's card in the wrong spot. Let's see, Rollins. There we go. We're back to the top of the order in Zoilo Versailles. Pitch from Johnson. That's a fly ball to left field. Wally Post is under that. Near the track, makes the catch, and there are 2 away. So 2 up, 2 down. Nobody on for Jimmy Hall. Here's the pitch. It's a ground ball back to Ken Johnson. He jogs towards first base and tosses to Coleman. And the Twins go 1-2-3 in the bottom of the 8th. No runs, no hits, no one left on 8 innings in the books, and it's the Reds 10 and the Twins 7. Ken Johnson gets... I have Klippenstein in the wrong place here. He has 1 fatigue point. Ken Johnson is at his... got his 6th, excuse me. So, Klippenstein is going to come out here for the top of the 9th, see if he can hold the Reds and try to keep his team within striking distance. Leading things off here for the Reds in the 9th inning is Eddie Casco, the shortstop. And that's a strikeout. Strikeout number 1 for Klippenstein. And there's 1 away here in the top of the 9th. Brings up Veda Pinson. Here's the pitch. It's a 1-out single for Pinson. Pinson is 3 for 5 now with a couple of runs scored. So he's on first with 1 out, and the batter nobody on the Twins pitching staff wants to see today, Frank Robinson. Robinson is 5 for 5, 2 singles, a home run, 2 doubles, a run scored, and 2 RBIs. And we got Pinson on first base with 1 out, and here's the pitch to Robinson. He hits a ground ball to third base. And it's going to be Rollins, 2 Versalis, 2 Killebrew for the inning ending 5-6-3 double play. First time Frank Robinson is retired in this game, and it's on a double play. So that's going to do it for the Reds here in the top of the 9th. No runs on 1 hit, 1 man left, and after 8.5, it's the Reds 10 and the Twins 7. And Klippenstein gets another fatigue point. He's come in and done his job. Ken Johnson's coming out here for the bottom of the 9th. He's going to face the heart of the order. Tony Oliva, Harmon Killebrew, Bob Allison. But the Reds are getting Jim Brosnan ready. Actually, I'm sorry, Bill Henry is warming up for the Reds if needed. The Reds can hold on here. They'll get their 9th win and be 1 win away from reaching the Goodell Cup Finals to face the Cleveland Indians. But they got to finish up with the Twins here first. And leading things off is Tony Oliva. Oliva is 0 for 4. Here's the pitch. And he reaches base for the first time on a leadoff walk. That's going to bring up Harm Killebrew. Killebrew is 4 for 4. Or excuse me, 3 for 4 with a... No, 3 for 3 with a walk. A home run. 2 doubles. 2 RBIs. 2 runs scored. Pitch from Johnson. Ooh, and it's a line drive, but right at first baseman Coleman. And he reaches to tag Tony Oliva, but he gets back. And Coleman robs Killebrew of a base hit. And there's 1 away now. Almost a double play, but heads up base running by Tony Oliva. He gets back to first. That brings up Bob Allison. Pitch from Johnson. And that's a strikeout. 2 outs. Strikeout number 3 for Ken Johnson. And the Reds are 1 out away from getting win number 9 in this tournament. All right, Earl Batty. Here's the pitch. And it's a fly ball to center field. That sends Veda Pinson back to the track near the wall. He makes the catch. And this one is over. So no runs on no hits for the Twins here in the bottom of the 9th. They did leave a man on. And we got a final here. The Reds 10 and the Twins 7. Get some totals. The Reds 10 runs on 17 hits. They did commit 2 errors. The Twins 7 runs on 8 hits, and they committed 3 errors. The winning pitcher is Ken Johnson, and the loss goes to Jim Kaat. Or wait a minute. Yes, he was responsible for those runners. So the loss goes to Kaat, and Ken Johnson gets the win. The Reds get win number 9, and will face the 1950 Phillies in Game 69 of this tournament. If you hung out with me, I appreciate it. And I'll be back again in the near future with another video. And until then, take care.